Hey guys, welcome back to Read Instead. I'm Jake. Glad to have you here today. Another one of my 5-star science fiction reads is 1990's Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Here's the premise. In 2732, the hegemony of man comprises hundreds of planets connected by Farcaster portals. The hegemony maintains an uneasy alliance with the Technocore, a civilization of AIs. Modified humans, known as ousters, live in space stations between stars and are engaged in conflict with the hegemony. Numerous outback planets have no Farcasters and cannot be accessed without incurring significant time dilation. One of these planets is called Hyperion, home to structures known as the Time Tombs, which are moving backwards in time and guarded by a legendary creature known as the Shrike. On the eve of an ouster invasion of Hyperion, a final pilgrimage to the Time Tombs has been organized. The pilgrims decide that they will each tell their tale of how they were chosen for the pilgrimage. Okay, so if that premise maybe threw you guys for a little loop, it probably should. It's pretty deep, this novel. But in saying that, I think it shows the genius of Dan Simmons. This is the most complex book that I've ever read personally. At least it was for me. But it was incredibly entertaining and enjoyable. So if you guys just paid attention to that premise, that's what this entire novel is. The novel is these 7 people being chosen to enter in onto this journey to the Time Tombs, and as they're going along, they each tell their tale. Let me just tell you guys, each one of these stories within this novel that each pilgrim shares is awesome, absolutely intriguing and unique to itself, and just a blast to read and to wrap your head around. It's just they all come from different professions, and they're just sort of put together into this group and told to make their way to this destination on Hyperion, the Time Tombs, and they want to find out why, and they all start explaining their stories one by one in order to maybe come to some sort of a conclusion as to why they specifically were picked. The only thing that's sort of similar and congruent throughout all the stories is that the planet of Hyperion has something to do with each one of the stories, but aside from that, they're all very unique, and all of the pilgrims have unique professions. There's a female detective, there is a professor, there's a priest, there's a consul, like a government sort of worker, there is a general, there's a knight. I know it sounds crazy. They all have these, and this is set in the future, way into the future. 2700 is when we take off in this journey. But I remember reading these stories, and they were just so intriguing. One of them, I believe it was the professor, has an only child and a daughter. And she grows up, and she's part of some sort of like an intelligence team that wants to gather information from different planets. And she ends up visiting the Time Tombs. And when she returns, she starts to sort of have these different symptoms. And what happens is she basically starts aging backwards. And she's slowly turns from a 25-year-old woman into a baby, and it's just the most intriguing story, and it shows that these Time Tombs on Hyperion have some sort of very unique to that planet, and they hold some sort of power that has to do with, the changing of time, and time reversal. And that's what this entire novel is. It's just the journey of them going to the time tombs. There's also an aspect that they know that there's basically like a traitor or a spy within that group, the 7 of them, and you don't know who it is as the reader till you get to the end. But that gets brought to light. But I mean, the thing that I remember about this, and when I think back on it now, is this is the only book that I've read by Dan Simmons. I have, when I got this book, right after I finished it, I bought the next 3 books in the series. It's a series of 4 books. It's called the Hyperion Cantos, and I look forward to reading the rest of them. I just know that they sort of take, a little bit of, mental capacity and energy to get into them. So maybe that's made me a little hesitant, but I am excited to get into the rest of this series. I just haven't worked it into my reading schedule yet. But Dan Simmons is just a phenomenal writer. He's very skilled in his prose, and just the concepts. And like I said, in each one of these stories, they're very sort of just unique, and the different locations, geographical locations that each one of these pilgrims comes from is very. He just puts you right there in that place, and it's not a place that we as human beings in real life have ever observed in any way. They're different. They're different places in a different time, in a different in a different place, and he makes it just very, very real. So I remember I spoke to you guys in a previous video a while ago, one of my earlier videos, talking about how a book sits with you differently as time goes on. You can have an initial reaction to it, and then maybe 6 months or a year later, when you think of that book, it may sort of evoke different feelings and emotions towards it. This is, for me, this is the epitome of a book that you close it, and it sort of haunts you as the more time passes by. It continues to sort of haunt you and intrigue you, and that's what this book has done for me. I remember when I first finished it, I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember my thinking why. Maybe there just wasn't enough, sort of climactic, high energy sort of scenes or something like that. But months and months later down the road, I remember thinking back to it, and I was this book is just in a league of its own, kind of, for me. I'm not super well read when it comes to sci-fi, but I have read a lot of the the sort of the most popular science fiction that's been written in the past 50 years or so. And this book is just highly, highly intriguing. I would encourage it to anybody who just wants to maybe challenge yourself a little bit and really be brought to a different place, experience maybe. I feel like this book is pretty unique unto itself, where it's almost reads like a classical novel. A lot of people compare it to just the structure of the story to the Canterbury Tales, but it's very complex and futuristic at the same time. So those 2 elements sort of together make it very unique to itself. So Hyperion by Dan Simmons, another one of my 5-star reads. I hope you guys check it out. Take care.